Hi, welcome to Mastering Your Credit and Your Credit Score. I'm Carol Roberts, your Community Resource Development Agent in St. Lucie County, working for the University of Florida IFAS Extension. Today we are going to learn all about credit. We're going to look at the different types of credit we can use, the different types of credit cards that are available. We're going to understand by the end of this presentation where our credit score comes from, and how to access our credit report, and also what's in our credit report. What are our creditors saying about us? What do we need to know? We'll look at some best management practices for choosing and using a credit card. And then at the end, we're going to talk a little bit about debt reduction methods, ways to make sure if you're overextended on credit, how to get a handle on that and get out of that situation. So let's get started. So our credit score is more important than we realize. And unfortunately, when we turn 18 and become a legal adult, nobody says, "Congratulations, you have a credit score and this is how to manage it." Well, few people might do that, but mostly we don't get that help. So let's find out about how a credit score impacts our lives. Did you realize that your credit score helps determine how much it costs to borrow money? Yes, credit card issuers and lenders will look at your credit report and your credit score and determine to use that information to determine if you are a good risk for them to lend money to. Auto insurers are now looking more at our credit score than our driving history to determine how much in our auto insurance premiums will need to pay. Basically, they want to know, is this person going to pay these premiums or not? Also, employers are using credit scores and credit histories to help determine if someone is a worthy hire or not. They have to make a decision on whether to invest in an employee. So sometimes they're wondering, is this person able to manage money? Their credit report might indicate whether they can do that or not. Also, their financial situation might dictate whether a prospective employee would be spending time calling their bank or their lenders instead of focusing on their job. So more employers are considering a person's credit history as a hiring factor. Landlords are also wanting to know, is this person going to pay the rent? So more and more are doing a background check and looking at people's credit scores to determine if they're responsible with their money. So even if we're not borrowing money, our credit score is still impacting our lives in many different ways. So if our credit history is so important, how do we find out what our credit history is? Well, the federal government says that you are owed a credit report once a year for free from all three major credit bureaus, and you can access that at www.annualcreditreport.com. It's the one site on the web that gives you access to your own credit report from all three of the major credit bureaus completely free once a year. You can choose to access all three credit reports at one time, or choose to access just one of the credit bureaus every 4 months, and then you can monitor your own credit for free. Sometimes just looking at our credit report is the only way we find out that we've been a victim of identity theft. Someone has opened an account in our name and we may not know it. Our credit report helps us to know that. So actually, if you've been a victim of identity theft, you are actually owed a free credit report. Even if you've checked your annual credit report in the last year. Also, if you've applied for credit and been denied, or been denied a job or a place to live based on your credit report, whoever denied you has to let you know which credit bureau they checked with, and you have access to check your free credit report at annualcreditreport.com to see what they saw that caused them to deny you. Once you get into annualcreditreport.com, each of the three major credit bureaus will give you the opportunity to purchase your credit score, often called a FICO score, for a few dollars up to $10 from some sites. You can do that if you'd like to. It's not necessary. Once you see your credit history and you know the factors that make up your credit score, which we're going to talk about next, then you can pretty much estimate where on the credit scoring range that you fall. Also, more and more banks and credit card companies are providing access to our credit scores through their online account systems. So if you have access to that, it's not difficult to find out what your credit score is and monitor that and see how it moves up and down based on your activity. When you go to annualcreditreport.com, you'll be able to access your credit file from all 3 major credit bureaus. What you'll see in your credit file are all your credit accounts for 7 years, or could be longer depending on the date of last activity, but every negative and positive credit account within that time frame will be listed there, as well as the contact information for each of those creditors in case you need to talk to them. Also, what you'll find in that credit report are any addresses and phone numbers that your credit accounts have known about. Employers, your social security number will also be in that credit file. So if you print it, be careful about letting other people see that. That's your personal information. Any legal judgments against you will show in your credit report, and credit inquiries, the hard inquiries and soft inquiries will all show. The hard inquiries are the ones where you allow someone to check your credit file, say for applying for auto insurance or a auto loan. They ask for permission and you say, yes, you can check my credit history. That's called a hard inquiry, and it does impact your credit score a few points each time you let someone do that. So try to limit that. Also, the soft inquiries, your current credit accounts, every so often they want to check up on you and make sure you're still in a good place. But they have to let you know that they've done that, so you'll see a listing of who's checking up on you on those soft inquiries as well. And the most important part of what's in your credit file is your debt repayment profile, because that is the biggest factor of your credit score. So your credit score is a formula that takes into account several factors, the biggest of which, like I just mentioned, is your payment history, your debt repayment profile. It's very important that you pay your bills on time. If you've made payments more than 30, 60, 90 days late, that will be reflected on your credit report. So you want to make sure you pay those credit accounts on time, or at least before they're 30 days late, so you can maintain a good credit score. Also, the amounts owed are on your credit accounts is very important. And that means that, say you have a credit card with a $1,000 balance, or sorry, a $1,000 limit, and you've only spent maybe $100 of that. So the gap between what you've spent versus what you have access to is very big. Once you purchase more and run that balance up to closer to that $1,000 limit, say you get up to $900, the gap between what you have access to and what you actually owe is much smaller. The smaller that gap, the smaller your credit score. So try not to overextend on credit. Financial advisors will say the most optimum use of the amount that you have access to is about 30%. So if you have a $1,000 credit limit, try to keep your balance on that card about $300 or less. Also, the length of your credit history is taken into account, and that's the average age of your accounts. So consider that when you're thinking of maybe canceling a credit card. How long have you had it, and how will that cancellation impact the average length of your credit history? Also, new credit. Have you just started using this credit account? Maybe the lender doesn't have enough of a history to know whether you're going to be responsible with it or not. So when a credit account is new, it does negatively impact your score temporarily, but as you use that and show that you can make those payments on time, that new credit becomes a positive credit account, hopefully. Also, the types of credit in use are a factor of your credit score. What do we mean by types of credit? Well, there's installment credit. That means that you purchase something, usually something that can be taken away, like a car or a house, and you are making installment payments to bring that balance down month after month until it's paid off. That is seen as a wise use of credit. Revolving credit is seen as a little bit riskier. Revolving credit is like a credit card. The balance goes up and down depending on how much you paid and how much you purchased throughout the billing cycle. So the balance is constantly revolving, going up and down. That is seen as a little bit riskier, so it can have a negative impact on your credit score if you have too many revolving credit accounts to consider. Scores will range usually between 300 and 850, with 850 being the highest, the goal to reach for. You'll get the best rates on credit use for scores of usually 740 and above. So you might ask yourself, if credit is so hard to manage and so easy to get in trouble with, why is there even such a thing? Well, credit is important. It was created because we can't always pay in full for things we need. Things like a home or a car, most of us can't just pay for all at once. So we need someone to lend us the money and let us pay them back in small doses, right? So that's why credit was invented centuries ago. Even the Bible talks about usury as something that a bad practice. Usury is overcharging someone for interest on a credit line. Anyway, so yes, there is a wise use of credit, buying those things that we can't afford to pay for all at once, like a home or a car. Education expenses can be a wise use of credit. We need to do a little bit of investigation on the educational institution and the type of degree we're going to get with that use of credit to get an education, to make sure we can pay that education expense back when we finally have that new career. Also, it is a benefit to be able to take advantage of the perks that come with using some credit, revolving credit. Things like no interest, or delaying the interest, or cash back, and perks, travel miles, and things like that. That's great. And we can take advantage of that, but using a credit account wisely while earning those perks is necessary. And then there are the things that are the unwise use of credit. Overextending on our credit cards. That's a very unwise use of credit. Having even overextending extending on installment loans is an unwise use of credit. You have the house, you have more than one car, you have the boats, the jet skis, the everything else we're making payments on, along with our credit cards. We can end up overburdened if we're not managing our credit. So we need to manage our revolving credit, especially because it's so easy to get in trouble with that. We want to make sure we only buy things we can afford. We limit the number of accounts that we have to pay on and accounts we have access to, so that we don't overextend on our balances and using money that we don't have and won't have in the near future to make those payments. And then when we're making late payments, we already talked about the impact to our credit score when that happens. So using tomorrow's money to pay for today is basically a bad idea. My grandmother was the best credit manager I knew. She only charged on her credit cards what she knew she could pay off at the end of the month. She didn't carry a balance. And actually, there's an industry term for someone like that. Someone who uses a credit card completely free is referred to as a deadbeat, because that person can't make the credit card industry money. They're just a slide along account, basically. So, and then the really wise use of credit is defaulting on those debts when we can't make those payments, and we just walk away. That's going to really impact our credit score and the cost of living for way too long in the future. So let's drill down a little bit on credit cards. There are different types of credit cards that you might have come across. A lot of people are familiar with secured credit cards. Then they use a secured credit card as a way to rebuild or build a credit score. A secured credit card means that you send, say, $300 or $500 to the company offering that secured card, and then they hold that money for you and let you use your own money as a backup for that credit card. So you're basically using a credit card to charge items, and then using the money you've already given the credit card company to hold for you to pay off those balances. And that's a secured card. There's a lot of fees for that, but if you have a compromised credit score and need a way to rebuild that credit history so that you can improve your credit score, then a secured card is a tool that will do that. Just make sure that whoever is offering that secured card is reporting your credit use to the credit card bureaus. I've heard of some that don't. There are a lot of people use the term charge card, and this really refers to something that's store specific, like a Kohl's card or a Best Buy card, Walmart card, or even a Chevron gas card. Those places you can only use that card at that one kind of store, and that helps you limit your use because you have to be in that store to use that card. And oftentimes they send a lot of perks and incentives to get you to use that charge card at their store. So you can take advantage of that, but don't overextend. I know a few people that overextend on their Kohl's card because the Kohl's bucks they keep sending just cause them to, I have to go get something on a discount. But then when you pay those, they carry a balance and have to pay interest, whatever you bought on sale wasn't really on sale anymore by the time you get it paid off, is it? Something to think about. Some parents will request a student card for their children to help them build a credit score. Their student card is associated with the parent's credit card account, but it has limits that keep the student from overextending and gives them an ability to practice using credit with supervision. So that could be a good way to help your the children in your household as they grow up to learn to manage their credit wisely. There's the standard classic unsecured credit card. That's our Visa and MasterCard and American Express, Discover, those typical cards we're familiar with. And then there's the really fancy ones of those, the gold, platinum, titanium, whatever color they want to, whatever precious metal they want to assign it to. That's fine. Those usually have higher spending limits and more perks associated with them. You qualify for those with a higher credit score. Some people use those gold and titanium cards as status symbols, and if that's what you want to do, that's up to you, but it just means that you have access to more credit to get in trouble with, in my way of thinking. Well, just like anything, there's advantages and disadvantages, right? So the advantages of using a credit card, well, it's really convenient. We don't have to have money in our wallet. We can buy things. We can not have to carry cash, which is kind of handy and safer. We can make purchases online. We can take advantage of all those cashbacks and perks that those credit card companies offer with our use of credit. And you can actually rent a car. Recently, I spoke to someone who rented a car without a credit card, and they were not happy with the $500 hold on their debit card account while they were on vacation. So there is an advantage to renting a car with a credit card if you need to rent a car. The disadvantages, though, geez, it doesn't really seem like you spend money when you buy something with a credit card. You walk out of a store, you still have all the same cash in your wallet, and you have a little bag of something new, and it doesn't even feel like you spent money until at the end of the month you get your utility bill and go, oh, that's the money that I actually spent buying that new little thing a few weeks ago. Now how am I going to pay this bill? That can happen. So it is easy to overspend with a credit card. We don't see the money going out, and we don't get down to that last $20 bill that reminds us to be a little bit more careful with our spending. And then the fees. Record profits from fees by the credit card industry providers. Just year after year, they make more and more money off of charging us fees. We're going to talk about fees in just a minute, so I'm going to stop that about that. Realize that to use a credit card wisely, take advantage of the perks, and be aware of the disadvantages so you don't fall prey to the bad practices that can happen. So if you're looking at securing your own credit card, maybe it's time to get a new one or your first one, please don't take advantage of those offers that come in the mail. Those unsolicited offers that are sent to you are usually some of the worst offers available. You want to be proactive about looking for a credit card that's right for you. So you can go to one site on the web that I know of is bankrate.com. They have a link there that you can click on and put in the features that you're looking for on a credit card, and it'll tell you which companies offer that. You can click, I want something with no annual fee. I want something that gives me miles for airlines. And I want something that gives me maybe 3 weeks grace period so to pay the bill. Click those options and it'll tell you which companies offer that. Then you call them and be proactive about applying. But when you're comparing credit card offers, there's by law 7 criteria that have to be compared for you in a box format. We may have seen these in those credit card offers that come in the mail, but the little sheets that unfold, and it's called the Schumer box format, and it has 7 different criteria that we're going to look at next that you want to make sure you're comparing to make sure you get the best credit card offer and credit card account that's right for you. The first thing that usually all of us look at on a credit card is what is the annual percentage rate that they're going to charge me for using this account? Well, those vary. Average right now in the US, last I heard, was 16% on a credit card. If you can get better than that, awesome. That comes with a good credit score. A lot of us are looking at 20, 21% interest rates. And so we want to be careful about that. Sometimes you'll see 0% interest. How can they do that? Well, it's usually a teaser rate to get you to transfer a balance or apply for their card. It'll be just for a certain amount of time. They have to let you know how many months at that teaser rate. And you could take advantage of that. That is a way to save money if you're using your credit account wisely. But one good thing to note is if you pay your balance off in full every time you have a balance, your APR doesn't matter. It never kicks in. If you don't carry a balance, you're not charged for using the card. So if you refrain from carrying a balance and you have a card that has no annual fee, then you can use a credit card completely free as long as you make your payments on time. We'll talk about that again in a second. Besides the annual percentage rate that will be charged for carrying a balance, there are other rates that the credit card company has to tell us about that may kick in depending on what we do with our card. So I talked about a 0% teaser rate on a balance transfer. So they have to let us know what's the rate that balance is going to click to jump to if we don't get that balance that we transferred paid off before that time limit is up. They have to let you know that. If we're going to make a cash advance with our credit card, there's a different rate for that. It's usually a lot higher. And also be aware that if you take a cash advance with your credit card, the interest rate, there is no grace period. They start charging interest on that cash advance from the day you make that cash advance. So be aware of that. There is no grace period on cash advances. If you default on a payment, if you're late, the Schumer box will let you know what rate your annual percentage rate will jump to because you defaulted on a payment. and lets you know how many months it will take of you making payments on time for it to go back to the annual percentage rate that you agreed to. Uh, and if there's an introductory rate that changes after a certain time, they have to let you know that. So be aware of that. Most credit cards have a variable rate that will change along with the index that it's attached to. Some index rate plus a percentage is what they charge. You want to know, and it'll tell you in that Schumer box format, if there's a minimum rate or a maximum rate that they can charge you. You'd really like to know that information before those rates kick in, wouldn't you? One of the other features that the credit card industry has to disclose is the grace period. How long do you have after the end of each billing cycle to pay your bill before it starts being counted as late? Well, by law, it must be at least 21 days. Some credit card companies offer longer, which is nice because it takes time for the credit card company to process that statement and send it out through the mail and give you time to make that payment and get it back through the mail sometimes. So that cuts down on your 21 days grace period, the time between those 21 days. So after that, the grace period is over, then your interest kicks in. So make sure you know how long you have to make that payment before you're going to be start being charged interest on that balance, if you carry one. Another feature that the credit card company has to disclose to you in the Schumer box format about their credit card offer is their method for computing your balance. This is referred to as an average daily balance, and that means that they average together your balance for each day of the billing cycle, and taking into the fact that you may have purchased more or paid on your balance sum, and so they take an average of that. They'll also let you know whether that calculation is going to include or exclude purchases made that current billing cycle. If your credit card terms say excluding new purchases, that means that you get a one cycle grace period on interest on those new purchases until next month. That's when they'll start applying interest to those purchases that you made this month, if you're still carrying a balance. If you don't carry a balance, doesn't matter whether it's including or excluding new purchases, all purchases are new, and you pay them off at the end of the month. They'll also let you know what percentage of the balance will be required for your minimum payment. By law, this has to be at least 2%. Some credit card companies require more than 2% of the balance for the minimum payment, but think about what 2% means. So if you have a credit card account that has $1,000 limit and you've used all $1,000, so your balance is $1,000, they want just 2% of that $1,000 for a minimum payment, which means $20. How long do you think it will pay off $1,000 paying $20 at a time? And how much interest do you think they'll gain on you while you're paying that $20 minimum payment for well, actually, we're going to look at how long it takes to pay off the minimum payment in just a second. So we want to make sure that we're paying more than the minimum payment, and any of those payments over the minimum have to be applied to the higher interest balances first. I mentioned that there are different annual percentage rate, different interest rates that you're charged for different things you do with your card. Any payment over the minimum will be applied by law to the highest interest balances first. So good, that's a good way to get those higher interest activities wiped away faster, right? Pay more than the minimum. And then there's all the other fees that they like to charge you. Credit card companies and financial institutions, like I mentioned, make record profits off fees year after year after year. They love to just include a fee here or there for us. So nuisance fees, I call them, but really it's their way to make money, that you'll want to look for a credit card that has no annual fee. Having an annual fee means even if you don't use that card whatsoever all year long, there's still going to be an annual payment that you have to make to maintain that account. Could be anywhere from $20 to $150 from what I've seen. But really, it's just an added fee to have that account. You want to make sure there's no finance charge. Some credit card companies will charge a finance card for processing your payment. You can avoid that. Not all cards have those finance charges. Other fees you might want to look for and make sure you are aware of what the cost of the rate of those fees are, and so you know the things to do to avoid being hit with fees. Is there a balance transfer fee? You might have a 0% interest, but there might be a percentage of the balance that you transfer that is considered a fee for allowing you to do that. A cash advance fee, besides the high interest that kick in, there might be a fee for just doing that. Of course, there's a late fee. And over limit fees, we want to know what those are. When we go over that $1,000 limit, what are they going to charge us for doing that? Account opening fee. Wow, that's an insult. Hey, just to have this account, we're going to charge you a fee for opening it for you. Thanks for being our customer. Here's a fee for that. No. Transaction fees, same thing. Why is there a transaction fee? I can understand a foreign transaction fee because it's currency exchange, but an actual transaction fee, that should be paid by the merchant, not me, the credit card holder. And a monthly maintenance fee, that's just another fee for us because they're maintaining our account and calculating our balance. Gee, they should be paying. I just don't understand, but those are the fees that we can be charged and we need to be aware of. When we see those kind of nuisance fees like transaction fees and maintenance and account opening fees, that's a big red flag. That might not be an account that we want. So now we've done our research, we've gotten ourselves a good credit card, and now we have to use it wisely. Let's talk about all the features of our card and how we use them wisely so we're not overextending on credit and we make this credit card situation work for us instead of negatively impacting us. Well, number one, always pay on time. We just talked about the fees associated with being late. So we want to avoid the late fees and make sure that we are not having to pay those fees and we're not having our credit score impacted by late payment history. So because they have the biggest impact on your credit score. Always pay on time. Pay more than the minimum. The credit card company tells you this percentage of the balance is the minimum payment, probably 2%, and that's not going to get us anywhere. So if we have a credit card balance, we want to make sure we plan to pay as much as we can to knock down that balance every month until it's wiped away. Start with the credit card that has the highest interest rate if you have more than one account, and apply as much as you can to that highest interest rate card to knock down that balance to save yourself some money, and then pay off each of those cards as quickly as you can. Maybe you're going to have to do without some other things and refrain from some other expenses while you get that paid down, but it's very important to keep those balances in a manageable level, or zero, even better. You might want to limit the number of cards you're carrying around in your wallet, or even that you have the number of accounts that you have, even if you're not carrying the card. The last information I saw from the Federal Reserve, I believe it was, said that the average American has 16 credit cards in their wallet. That's a lot of plastic to carry around, a lot of room that it's taking up, and a lot of vulnerability if we happen to have our wallet stolen, huh? So maybe we need to look at how many accounts we have access to and get a better handle on that. Only keep the accounts that we use on a regular basis, the ones that have the best annual percentage rate and perks for us, and might want to think about canceling or at least not carry the ones that you don't use. And if you are an impulse shopper, maybe only carry the one that you plan to use that day if that's possible. And this one is so important. Only buy what you can afford. We want to pay off our monthly balances in full, and we need to be able to afford to do that. You not have to do a spending plan and know how much money you have in each month to put towards those credit card balances. And if you can pay them off in full, that's great. That helps you avoid interest and avoid late fees and make sure that you're managing your credit wisely. Know yourself and know your budget. That's really important. If you're an impulse shopper, like I said on the last slide, don't take the cards with you or only take the one you plan to use so you can't overextend on credit accidentally. That helps give you some control over your credit use. And another thing we want to do is review our credit card statement every month. Make sure you recognize all those transactions. Sometimes we don't know we've been a victim of identity theft unless we see strange transactions. Sometimes there's just been an operator error that we need to call about. Maybe what you thought you paid was not what you see reflected on your statement. You need to call somebody about that and get it fixed so you don't get taken advantage of. Your statement will show you how long it will take to pay off your balances. By law, the credit card companies have to include that information that tells you if you only make the minimum payment on this balance you have today, this is how long it will take you to pay this off. Really good information, good motivator to make sure we pay more than the minimum payment. And make sure you watch your balance compared to your limit so you aren't overextending on credit and causing your credit score to go down. So I wanted to include a little example of what the difference that an annual percentage rate makes. I've chose an example of a $3,000 balance on a credit card, which unfortunately is way below what the average American owes in credit card debt right now. The latest statistic I saw that was average American is about $16,000 in credit card debt. Do you feel good being below average right now? I hope you do. So I chose a $3,000 balance for our example and a 21% interest rate. At those conditions, a minimum payment, 2% of the total balance, would be $60 a month. And if you only paid that minimum payment, it would take a total of 117 months to pay off that $3,000 balance. Plus, with the interest that you've been charged, it would actually cost $7,020 to pay off the $3,000 you spent to run up that balance. But what if we had a lower interest rate because we had a better credit score? Here's the same $3,000 balance with a 12% interest rate. Same $60, 2% of the total balance minimum payment. At this interest rate, annual percentage rate, it would take 70 months to pay off that $3,000 balance. And if you multiplied 70 months times the $60 per month, it would actually cost $4,200 to pay off the $3,000 that was spent on that credit card. Still, $1,200 more than you intended to spend when you bought those items, but it's better than spending $4,000 more than you intended to spend. So that's the difference an interest rate makes. If you'd like to calculate how long it will take to pay off your credit card balances, you can go to my second favorite website on the web, bankrate.com. They have some great calculators for you to help you determine that. So you want to make sure you pay. If you're carrying a balance, you can call your credit card company and see if you can lower your interest rate. If you've made your payments on time and been a good customer, maybe have a history with that company, they may consider lowering your rate. I've done it before. Avoid late fees because that is just another $35 fee for nothing. So, and that inflates your balance even further. That's half of your minimum payment right there if it's a $35 fee. Wow. Yeah, we don't want that to happen. Watch your monthly statement. Like I said before, it's important to know what our balance is and make sure we're not overextending. If you're experiencing problems with managing your credit and getting your balances under control, further than just paying the minimum, more than the minimum payment on time, you might need to consider a payment push option. If you are interested in any of these other options, feel free to reach out to me over email or by phone, and we can talk about this in more depth. I can recommend a reputable credit counseling service, by the way. But if a payment push is too much for you right now or not going to sufficiently reduce your debt, you might want to look to a credit counseling service, but you'll definitely want to check the reputability and fees that they charge. By law, they can't charge a fee until they have completed what they contractually explained to you they would do for you. So you want to really look into that. You might consider refinancing or a consolidation loan for all of your debts, but keep in mind this only works if you change your spending habits. If you have all of your debts wiped clean because you consolidated them into one big loan, now you have that loan, but your credit card balances are completely down to zero again, you can run them right back up again and still have that consolidation loan hanging over your head as well. So now you're in even more trouble. Be careful with that. It only works if you change your spending habits and don't run your balances right back up again. And then if there's always bankruptcy. It's a last resort maneuver. It will affect your credit score for 7 to 10 years, your ability to get to use credit at all. And the new laws are forcing more people into reorganization instead of clearing their balances. They're forced to on a spending plan like you can do for yourself. You don't want the court system to put you on a spending plan. You can do that for yourself and not get the court system involved. But there are options if you are feeling the pressure of too much debt. Okay, so we've talked about the best management practices of using a credit card. And so what's your goal with your credit cards? Well, strive to be a deadbeat. I mentioned that industry term for people who use a credit card without incurring any charges or fees. A deadbeat. That's my goal, to be a deadbeat to the financial industry with my credit cards. So thank you for joining me for this presentation about credit management. We've talked about the types of credit in use. We've talked about how to access our credit report and calculate our credit scores. We've talked about how to choose and use a credit card wisely. And we've learned a lot. And how did you learn it? Well, from your county extension service. And I'm not talking about hair extensions or lash extensions, leg extensions while you're exercising, or even extension cords. I'm talking about the extension service that is a federal service that's been in the federal program for more than 100 years, providing adult education and youth education through 4-H to every state in the nation. In Florida, we're lucky to have support from our state government. There's an extension office in every one of the 67 counties in Florida for you to be able to visit, access through the web, connect to by phone, however you need to connect it. We provide research-based, non-biased information that helps you make better decisions. So I look forward to you joining us for other future extension programs as well. Thank you.